Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I've got another fantastic series of gameplays for you today. Let's take Popper off there. So if you are looking at the title and you are able to read the English language, you will see that this is a series of Marath Will of the Wild games. I've started putting together lists off the pieces that I had in the collection, and some of the credit that I had with some of the bots at this point. I didn't have to spend any actual money. I put a couple tickets into it so far, but it's getting there bit by bit. I don't know if Jitte is right, but I feel like it's right. You don't care about throwing away a token when you're trading the token for Jitte counters. It feels really good. All right, so quick run through on the deck. I've played. Let's jump over to the count for a sec. God, why does it keep clicking pauper? Alright, so I've played 6 games with this deck so far, and it just crushed all of them. Absolutely what I'm hoping is a good signal for this type of deck right now. I'll jump through all the games in a moment, but let me jump through the deck real quick. So we're playing very basic heavy with the land tax package. That way we can Enlighten Tutor for land tax and guarantee our land drops. The deck is relatively mana hungry because you want to keep casting Marath at 3 and 5 and 7, etc. One of the most powerful lands that Marath wants to run, Gaia's Cradle, is unfortunately banned. Sad. But it's a necessary evil gone from this world. So Marath gets to play a slightly fairer game. This is definitely a deck that I think can go the Blood Moon route, but I don't think it's the best way to build this deck. That said, you want to make sure that in this deck, you almost always want to guarantee that you get to have a Forest and a Plains in play, because Earthcraft is such a powerful enabler in this deck. You need to make sure that you are enabling Earthcraft. Red is almost not important for basic, and I might actually cut one of these mountains and go down to a single basic mountain. Strictly because in the main deck, with the exception of Marath, we play all of 4 red spells. Bloodbraid Elf, Fiery Justice, Perforos, and Flame Tongue. This will increase once I put some actual real money into this deck. Kiki Jiki will go in here. Zealous Conscripts will be added into here. So we can have the Kiki Conscripts package. We're going to be adding Restoration Angel. All of those good synergies will be going into this deck. We need to find a decent sack outlet in white, green, red for the Lark Guide combo. And I've been going back and forth about a couple. Palastrel is in there for testing at the moment. He's holding Kiki's spot, or no, Resto's spot. I think he's pretty potent, especially in a deck that can go wide. Palastrel is just solid removal and card advantage in non-blue and non-black. So definitely welcome draw power in this deck. Mentor the Meek is fantastic with Marath. Make a 1/1, draw 1 card, Aven Mind Sensor, some Hate Bears. Other Hate Bears that I'm looking to add into this deck, Thalia 1, Thalia 2.0, and maybe Leonin Arbiter. This deck plays the full fetch suite, so Arbiter might not be correct. The other hate pieces that we have right now are Nullrod and Thorn of Amethyst. We're playing the Nullrod instead of Vandal Blast at the moment. It's possible Vandal Blast might be more correct because it kills all of them and we can still use Clamp Collar, our fast mana Sword and Sword. We're also playing Tanglewire because in response to Tanglewire, we can put mana into Marath to make tokens, or Tanglewire's trigger. Make tokens, tap the tokens. We can feed Tanglewire way better than our opponents can feed Tanglewire. So it's a very good Tanglewiring deck. We're playing full mana dorks plus Utopia Sprawl. So we have Arbor Elf, Avacyn's Pilgrim, Birds of Paradise, Elvish Mystic, Fentorn Elves, Llanowar Elves, and Utopia Sprawl, which must go on a forest. It's another reason that you want to make sure you fetch a basic forest almost every single game is Utopia Sprawl. Because if you Earthcraft the forest that's enchanted by Utopia Sprawl, you are just in the money of Mana World. Playing Stoneforge Mystic to get all of these fancy artifacts. It's possible Batterskull might need to be in here as well. I don't think it needs to. That said, our life gain is rather non-existent. With the exception of Basilisk Collar. Sorry, that's the other equipment. which is very good because then you have, once you equip it to Marath, you have pay 1 mana, kill target creature. It's the other reason you play Nightshade Peddler. It's the only deck that Nightshade Peddler gets played in is Marath. So definitely a fun deck. Let's jump through the games real quick, and you'll get to see more of it as we go. Birthing Pod package, Garruk Primal Hunt, Garruk Wild Speaker. There's a minor Planeswalker theme, a little bit on the top end of some of the builds. I don't have all of the Planeswalkers, so unfortunately we don't get to do that. All right, first game against... Ooh. All right, jump through the first. All right, Audric, not any type of serious threat in my opinion. I see a very keepable opener. I fully intend to go Forest, get Fendhorn. Even though I have the possibility for turn 2 Marath, I care more about... I know Marath will win this game. I want to make sure that I win this game if he removes Marath when I tap out for him, or have mana open when I do play Marath, so that way I can use his ability and at least get 1/1s in response to something like a Path or a Swords. So I'm going to not run Marath on turn 3 and fetch basics off my lands. So let's jump through it. I'm just going to hit play. I get a Bloodstained Mire, so that guarantees all 3 of my basics, and it just solidifies this plan of not playing Marath on turn 2. He has 1/1 for and has an equipment ability. Get an Aven Mind Sensor off the top. So I'm going to go get the planes, and I believe I go Tangle Wire here just to slow him down. So one of the cool things that we're going to see here when we jump through his turn to my turn... Oh, he just scoops. For these games I played a couple days ago. So what we can do with Tangle Wire is fade it down to 3, stack the abilities of fading on top of the tap ability, so that way fading resolves first. Fade it down to 3 and then tap 3 things, including the Tangle Wire, so only 2 of our things get tapped. Meaning we tap Fendhorn Elves and Plains here, so that way he can't remove our mana in our draw step or something off some effect that we don't know about. Then we have Bloodstained Mire get Mountain and play Sylvan Library, or if we choose to go with Stoneforge Mystic, we can keep the Plains open and Bloodstained Mire, fetch Mountain, play Stoneforge Mystic. And I think in this matchup, I probably would have grabbed Stoneforge Mystic because Jitte is just unbeatable against Audric. There's no way that he comes back from us resolving or putting a Jitte into play. All right, on to the next game. I'm just going to hit play on this one. All right. Our opponent is Topic? I don't know. All right, playing Rashmi. All right, so pretty potent. I keep a risky hand. So I have turn 1 Zenith for Dryad Arbor, or turn 1 Jeweled Amulet, 6 of one, half dozen the other. I decided to go with the Jeweled Amulet because if it works, I can go turn 2 Green Sun for Birds of Paradise, which is strictly better. And I charge the Jeweled Amulet, and I believe in response he destroys it here. No, he repeals the Jeweled Amulet. Okay. So not as bad as it could have been. I top deck like a champ and get Taiga off the top. So I'm going to Green Sun for the birds like my plan was, and just replay the Jeweled Amulet. He goes Llanowar Elves, and I knew this was a top deck off the top because he had Repeal 0 on the Amulet, and he didn't play the Llanowar last turn, so we know he top decked this, and he missed land drop. So we still know he has no land drop other than his potential draw this turn. And it's something to keep in mind that you notice. It's important to develop those chops to sort of notice when your opponent's missing mana. And we tapped out from Wrath instead of charging Jeweled Amulet, because now we get to destroy 2 of his mana this turn. We get to claim away the diamond. I believe I shoot the Llanowar Elf down because it would block Marath otherwise, potentially. So we'll get him for 2 and play more mana out. We are well ahead in the mana race here. My opponent's back down to 2, missing their land drops a few turns in a row. It's clear they didn't get their land drop this turn, and they know the game's over. This next turn, I think I'll probably play this Skull Clamp out and clamp some dudes to build my board up, and go Aven Mind and try to keep Aven Mind Sensor open. If I get the following turn to stifle any fetch lands that my opponent has, and the game will wrap up quickly. When Rashmi is definitely a mana-hungry deck in the early game, and if you can stifle that, I don't think Rashmi can come back. That said, I think Rashmi is very powerful if you can get out of the early game. You just need to make your deck in a way that it guarantees that you get out of the early game. My opponent mulligans down to 5 cards and is on the play, so they don't get the draw. I have a nuts opening hand. So I go get my Forest. You'll see that having a turn 1 Forest is actually one of the best plays in this early game. just because of how potent forests can be. So go for Gyre Sage. I think it's Gyre Sage because it would be Gyroscope. We'll see. Drown Catacomb. I decided to Enlighten Tutor during upkeep. Even though I could take a risk and draw mana or no mana, I want to get the Chrome Mox because this guarantees mana that doesn't mana that is not a land drop. So that way, if I get a land drop next turn, I will immediately be able to play Marath, evolve Gyre Sage to 1, and have 2 mana open after Gyre Sage to be able to activate Marath, which will let me play Basilisk Collar. Not equip it yet, but play Basilisk Collar and keep 1 mana open on Marath, which is my entire plan, to make sure that no matter what, I get value out of Marath being put onto the battlefield. It's possible this was a greedy play. I didn't have land tax in the deck during this game, and this is when I decided, because if I get land tax here against the control deck and he can't deal with it, I don't think my opponent can ever come back from this game. So that's when I decided to add land tax to it. So that was Sturm on de Blas. Oh, why did I click that? There we go. So I see a very decent opening hand, Stoneforge Mystic, and a second equipment to put into play. I lead Command Tower. I'm expecting, I'm trying to bait any potential Wasteland. My opponent's on Gonti, by the way. So I top deck Mox Diamond. I pitched the basic here. This is one of the few games where you'll see I don't care about the basic, mostly because my opponent's not on a deck that will really punish me for playing out a greedy mana base. There's no Price of Progress in my opponent's deck. There's none in mine that he can steal from me. There's no Blood Moon in my deck that he can steal from me. So playing the greedier mana base doesn't really affect me at all in this game. And I really want this Mox Diamond in play. So now my mana is absolutely perfect. I untap with Marath, and he has Boseiju. So I get to Stoneforge Mystic. And I believe I get the Skull Clamp here. Play Skull Clamp out, keep 1 open. Make a Dork on my opponent's end step. Get a mana, crash into the red zone. I'm going to keep Stoneforge back to push Sword into play. And clamp the dude, leave 2 open, and enough to make another Dork. My opponent plays Gonti, and I'm going to... Do I chord here? I think I chord... Yeah. So I chord in response, and I have a few different options. I'm mostly afraid of what my opponent could possibly get out of my deck that I don't want them to have. And even though it's not really anything terribly effective, I think I get the... Because my opponent tapped out this turn for Gonti, it's my opportunity... I should have done this main phase, truth be told. I should have... Because I don't really recover really well from a Damnation effect, so I should have courted Fatigue during my turn. I'm going to just do it now, because now I know that my opponent doesn't have Damnation in hand because they would have played it out. I want to just put Teague down and guarantee that it's not going to be exiled underneath Gonti instead of making a 1-1 this turn. Teague is so much more powerful because a lot of my opponent's abilities are now stifled. So I get to put, for 2 mana, put the Sword into play, equip, and I equip here for a particular I equip to the Elemental for a particular reason. If my opponent wants to prevent me from getting Sword Trigger, they must block the Elemental, trade Gonti for a token, and I get to draw 2 cards instead of 1 card. If they don't block, I get to draw a card and deal 2 damage, which I deal to Gonti, and then I can kill with Marath. I attack with Marath because if they block Marath with Gonti, my Sword Trigger can kill him anyway. There is no way Gonti survives this turn, so it's possible that they should have just blocked and killed Marath or kept him up. I don't know. They took 1 damage to make me spend 1 mana effectively, and they made me draw 1 less card. This is a really potent combination of equipment. They're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. And it feels really bad killing a token to keep me from getting a Sword Trigger and just giving me 2 cards instead of a card and 2 damage. I don't think there's any profitable blocks here for my opponent, especially with Gaddock Teague in play. There's not really coming back from this. And I keep exactly enough mana open to kill this Gonti play. And I believe my opponent might scoop to this Teague. No, they do nothing and scoop, realizing that there's not really any coming back from this, especially when I'm going to 6, 7, 8, 9 their face, play a 5 mana Marath, and have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 mana open to activate it, which I will fully intend to do to make 2 more 1/1s, potentially, or dump counters. Oh, I can't dump counters onto the elemental. It has pro red. Probably dump counters onto Gaddock Teague. My goal is to get Teague into a point where Toxic Deluge is too devastating to be able to clear to their life total to be able to clear away Teague, and Teague will win me this game. So that is that game. This is Blaz. All right, 2 more guys, nice and quick, right? So we're against Blooner, I believe. Yep. So play. Let me pause the video. So I see a very decent opening hand. I have 1 green source, but it's my basic, and I have 2 red whites. So I'm in fantastic position. And I have Gyre Sage, Nissa to evolve Gyre Sage, and then Marath to evolve Gyre Sage again. So I'm very much liking this hand. I pick up Cinderglade off the top, so I lead tap land just to not take life loss. My opponent's on General Tazri. When I see basic, I automatically know it's not Food Chain Tazri, so I'm not worried anymore. My opponent goes for a triple basic and plays an ally, so he's playing ally tribal, and I just don't care anymore. Ally tribal is fun, but in 1v1, it's not going to be the deck that defeats me. I could get a forest. I get to evolve Sage. I believe I keep it back here because if he doesn't have Rally, he can't attack through Gyre Sage. He goes for a Coalition Relic. That's pretty good. So what I do, I'm going to put Marath into play, evolve again, have 3 mana up. My plan here was to use Gyre Sage and the Forest and play Green Sun Zenith, and I would, of course, gotten probably Gaddock Teague again. Teague is such a brutal hose against a lot of decks, and I don't think they can come back from it. I had Primetime in my hand, so I've had Teague into Primetime getting Wasteland and some other land hate. I think, well, no, my opponent was all basics. So just getting my best lands out of my deck, I don't think my opponent comes back anyway. All right, next game. I probably get Kessig Wolfron and something. And the Kessig Wolfron is the most important, just overrun with Marath. All right, final game. Daretti Scrap Savant, very powerful commander, and very scary if they have early ramp. Definitely less scary now that Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault are not in the format, because that significantly lessens the impact of turn 2 Daretti, but still very scary. I have a unkeepable opening hand. I decided to mull, and I see a very keepable hand too. 2 pieces of Artifact Destruction against the Artifact deck. I will happily keep that. This has to get the Savannah, unfortunately, because I need the green mana for this line, and I have the 2 basics already. So I can't go turn 1 basic. My opponent has an interesting line, so it's possible I should have fetched early, but I wanted my opponent to play a land before anything else and use their mana before anything else to make sure that I wasn't going to lose Savannah to some removal effect on lands. But I think it's correct to fetch here to make sure that I don't accidentally mill the Savannah because it's the target that I want. It's a very low percentage, but it's all about making the correct lines. And right now, I really don't care about Altar of the Brood. He has a second mill target in play, and he's targeting me instead of himself. In this situation, Codex Shredder should absolutely be targeting himself to fill his graveyard for Daretti's -2 as soon as Daretti comes down. You have artifacts in play. Like, fuel up for Daretti's -2. Get something like a Wormcoil Engine into play. God. But I'm going to dismantle some of his mana here. And because I don't care about the mill at all. I play Weathered Wayfarer in a hope that it'll keep my opponent from playing a land. And sure enough, I'm correct. Or my opponent misses a land draw. I'm going to say that my opponent made the better play and decided to not. So I'm going to let my opponent play a land, get to 3 mana, and have Daretti, knowing full well that if they use that 3 mana to play a rock, so that they can play Daretti without triggering Weathered Wayfarer, I'll be able to sliver the rock away. And I believe if I just crash in with Wayfarer for 1 damage, then my opponent tries to play a Mox Diamond. And I mentioned in the chat, it doesn't enter the battlefield if you don't throw away a land. So this makes me think that he doesn't have a land in hand. I think he was playing Mox Diamond for a mill of 1, which is an absolutely terrible position. You're up against a Weathered Wayfarer. You're down 1 land anyway. You can play a land and then the next land play Mox Diamond and still not be triggering my Wayfarer and have your 4 mana for Daretti that turn that you play Mox Diamond. I don't know what my opponent was thinking here. It seems like a huge brain fart. So I'm going to let my opponent up with the mana because I really want to keep hitting my land drops here. And I go for the Taiga. I really want to guarantee that I have a second red source just in case. Now I can really do anything in my deck. More importantly, it was another green source, and I didn't want to take damage off Savannah or off Temple Garden because I'm against a red deck. And I wanted to be able to use Marath. It was the other options. I needed a green source for Eldritch Evolution, and I didn't want to take damage. So I made an Elemental. And this deck's really about diversifying your threat. So because this is still 3 damage, but now it's on 2 separate creatures, it's harder for my opponent to deal with. He has a Heart of Ramos, which seems like a fantastic Harmonic Sliver target. I think I tap it on tap for a sec. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to keep open Swords, and I'm keeping open on Basic because of Wastelands. And I want to make sure Swords, he doesn't have to ready into something stupid. My opponent plays a Darksteel Citadel, not that I care, and Daretti's away Spinavish Shot and Metalworker, fine by me. I believe I make another 1/1, and here's the really cool play. So I get to kill Daretti off with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, make Daretti cost 6, and deal 1 damage to my opponent. 6 commander. This joke is totally dead against him in this game, so I don't mind though because Marath's just creating value for me. I Eldritch Evolution Marath away to get a Gaddock Teeg into play, so this way I don't get Wildfired because that's the way he blows me out in this game. It is absolutely how my opponent blows me out in this game, although Wildfire would be detrimental to him as well. It would be really bad for me though. So I go get Teeg to keep my opponent from having something like land 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Wildfire, sacrificing Crystal Vein. So I play the Teeg here. I learned from my past mistake. I get Teeg as soon as I can. He Trash for Treasure's Spine of Ishah back into play by sacrificing his Shredder. I think I would have sacrificed the Altar. Altar's not really doing anything. Like, it's milling me, but is that your strategy? Is it to mill me? Like, this is actually a regrowth and relevant for your deck. So you can regrowth something later in the game. You just get a Spine to kill my Teeg. But Spine spends his turn, so I'm not being Wildfired this turn at least. Get a Mana Confluence, and I think about not playing this to sandbag it in case of Wildfire. I decide to do it though, in the sense that Wildfire only hits 4 lands, and I'm going to keep Marath at 5. If I'm correct, Wildfire has 4 lands and 4 damage, so I get to keep Marath at 5 here. And my opponent taps out for Thran Dynamo, and I know I have the game, and you'll see why in a moment. And this is really why Marath is really cool, because of just the insane damage reach that the deck has. So I swing out, and just like that, I take out half my opponent's life, more than half my opponent's life total in a single turn. I cast Marath for 5 mana off lands. You have to assume that if you don't have a blocker, I can deal 10 to you. And that's something that a lot of players don't seem to realize with Marath. It's not just a 5 mana 5/5. It's a 5 mana 5/5 plus a 5 mana Fireball for 5 that next turn. And there's no Fireball plus 1 where actual Fireball is red plus X. It's just 10 damage the next turn the next time that I untap if you can't deal with Marath. And I think this insane reach caught my opponent off guard. I thought they might have I think that they were thinking they might have had another turn to set up basically for a Wildfire type of game. And granted, they would have had 4 mana at this point after what is Wildfire sacrifice or destroy? I'm not actually sure off the top of my head. They would have had plenty of maybe let's say it's sacrifice 4 lands. They would have at least had Thran Dynamo, and they're an artifact deck, and I'm a 3-color deck. I'd be in terrible shape if Wildfire happened. Good thing Marath closes games like a champ. My God. All right, so those are the games. I'm going to jump back to the deck real quick. Let's see, close that. Close that. Close that. There we go. Jump back over to collection. So some of the notable lands that Primetime can fetch for me is... Where are you? I am playing Kessig Wolfrun, I think. Maybe it's on my short list. Yeah, there it is. Kessig Wolfrun. Definitely that. Probably Cavern. And the blue matchups, probably Plateau or Savannah. I think Savannah's the best dual land next to Command Tower. Dryad Arbor is also relevant, but Wasteland's relevant in multicolor matches. But until I update the mana base a little bit more, it doesn't matter much. Cinderglade's pretty good because I can deal with the tap ability because Primetime makes it tapped anyway. Definitely a very fun deck to play. I really enjoy this deck so far, and stomped a lot of the competition. I hope you all got to enjoy some of the gameplays and are enjoying the direction that I'm going with Marath. I think I'm definitely going to lean in the more hate bearsy direction. I don't really want to have to go for the combo every game with Kiki Zealous, Kiki Resto, X, Y, and Z. I would absolutely love a deck that can win on its own merit without combo, just playing a very good game of Magic. One of the really cool cards that is Fiery Justice. Let me resort. So Fiery Justice is 3 mana, 5 damage to creatures and or players, and an opponent gains 5 life. So and or players seems weird. Deal them 5, they gain 5. Sucks, but you can deal 5 to them and redirect to a walker. And it's divided as I choose, so I can deal 3 to their walker, 2 to their blocker, crash into them. It's very neat. So the notable hate bears in here, Linvala, I guess Palace Jailer is technically a hate bear. He is a 2/2. And he draws me cards and deals with one of their creatures. Fiend Hunter, Aven Mind Sensor. It's possible Mother of Runes belongs in this deck as well. I guess Harmonic Sliver is pretty hate bearsy. Gaddock Teague is amazing and well worth a ticket. Scavenging Ooze in the right matchups. Nightshade Peddler in any creature matchup is effective. He's better than Jitte, honestly. You pair him with Marath, and Marath just kills everything. Prowling Surfboard in the blue matchups. It's a quality Naya deck. It's very straightforward. It's not big mana Naya, and that's one of the things that I like about Marath in specific. The other Naya commanders seem to want to build a big, I'm going to cast 5-drops, and I'm going to kill you with 5-drops. And Marath is like, nah, I'm going to be the biggest creature you ever cast the entire game, maybe the exception of Primetime. And that's going to be good enough because the rest of the creatures on the way are all very, very good in their own rights. And I think that's definitely where I like building decks, and I like building Marath. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video to anyone you think might enjoy the content on my channel. If you want to support me on Patreon, give a little bit back to the channel, help me work on this Marath deck. You can click the link that is on the screen now and pledge $1, and you'll get access to private videos as well. All right, see you all in the next one. Let's figure out how to stop this. Stop.